The global truck market has officially been flipped upside down because 3 automakers have just revealed ultra-budget pickup trucks starting at around $8,000, and the entire industry is scrambling to respond. For years, automakers told us cheap trucks were impossible, that safety rules and manufacturing costs would never allow anything under $20,000 or $30,000. And yet here we are, with GM, Subaru, and Toyota all preparing to launch the most aggressively priced pickups the world has seen in decades. And the craziest part, these aren't stripped down tin cans. These trucks are arriving with modern engineering, clever designs, and real capability aimed at one mission: take over emerging markets and embarrass legacy trucks that cost triple the price. First up is the all-new GM Montana, the truck that started whisper-level hype and then exploded into a full-scale industry panic. GM rebuilt the Montana into a compact, ultra-efficient global pickup designed to attack the bottom of the market with a price point nobody believed, roughly $8,000 to $9,000 depending on region. And what makes the Montana so shocking is the combination of modern styling with a legitimately useful bed setup. It looks like a baby Colorado, but with smarter packaging, better daily usability, and urban efficiency GM trucks haven't had in years. Under the hood, GM is going with small displacement engines and flexible fuel options that crush running costs and keep maintenance simple. This is GM quietly admitting that not everyone wants or needs a giant 6,000-pound truck, and that millions of buyers worldwide are desperate for a compact, affordable workhorse. The Montana is that workhorse, and rival automakers are absolutely terrified because GM is about to own a market that US companies abandoned decades ago. But then comes the shocker nobody thought would ever happen. Subaru is entering the pickup game again, and they're doing it in the most unexpected way. Subaru's new budget pickup is being engineered as a compact, lightweight utility machine priced directly in the $8,000 to $10,000 zone for developing and cost-sensitive markets. And the idea behind it is brilliant. It combines Subaru's legendary ruggedness and symmetrical all-wheel drive philosophy with a smaller, simpler chassis that keeps costs brutally low. Subaru realized something other automakers missed. Buyers want dependability, not excess. They want something that can handle muddy roads, mountain terrain, construction sites, and bad weather without needing a $40,000 loan. So Subaru said, fine, let's build a true back-to-basics pickup, something closer to an old-school brat in spirit but modern in efficiency and far more durable. And you can see what Subaru is targeting: farmers, tradespeople, rural drivers, adventure seekers, and entire regions begging for a small, trustworthy truck that won't destroy their wallet. Demand is so huge that dealers haven't even touched the truck yet, and it's already gaining cult attention online because Subaru entering this price segment is like a bomb going off in the industry. And then comes the monster, the truck that might completely destroy the low-cost segment if Toyota decides to mass produce it globally. The Toyota IMV Zero isn't just a cheap truck, it's practically a modular revolution. Toyota engineered it like a Lego set for the real world. Ultra simple construction, flat surfaces for easy repair, body panels you can replace with a wrench, and a chassis so basic that any mechanic anywhere can work on it. Toyota openly said the IMV Zero is designed for maximum accessibility, which is code for build it cheap, sell it cheap, fix it cheap, and dominate every market from Asia to Africa to South America. Prices have been floating around the $8,000 to $12,000 range depending on configuration, which instantly makes this a nightmare for every competitor. And the craziest thing, the IMV Zero still looks cool. It's boxy, rugged, and customizable like a mini Land Cruiser without the Land Cruiser price tag. Businesses want it, governments want it, off-road enthusiasts want it, and even city drivers want it because it's simple, honest, and not overloaded with expensive tech that breaks. Toyota didn't just build a truck, they built the blueprint for an entirely new class of ultra-affordable utility vehicles. And automakers are sweating because if the IMV Zero launches worldwide, it will erase half the trucks currently on sale. And what's happening behind the scenes is even wilder because industry insiders are now warning that these 3 ultra-cheap pickups aren't just new products. They're the opening shots of a full-scale price war that could collapse the entire mid-tier truck market. Automakers like Ford, Ram, Nissan, and even Hyundai suddenly look completely out of touch, selling $30,000 to $60,000 trucks packed with tech many buyers don't even want. And now analysts are openly saying the quiet part out loud. Once people realize they can get a brand new pickup for the price of a used motorcycle, loyalty to overpriced trucks is going to evaporate overnight. This is exactly why executives are panicking. They spent years pushing luxury trucks, oversized trucks, lifestyle trucks, and now GM, Subaru, and Toyota are reminding the world that trucks are supposed to be affordable tools, not rolling luxury hotels. And here's where things get even more dangerous for big automakers. Governments in emerging markets are already lining up to partner with companies offering low-cost, easy-to-repair vehicles. Infrastructure ministries, farming cooperatives, delivery companies, and even police departments are studying these budget pickups because they're simple, durable, cheap to run, and perfect for regions where repairing a modern truck is either impossible or insanely expensive. The IMV Zero alone is being positioned as a universal platform for taxis, emergency vehicles, construction fleets, and rural businesses. And that versatility is something Toyota's competitors cannot match at any price point. Meanwhile, GM's Montana is quietly building a reputation as the people's truck, something the working class can actually afford without getting buried under loans. And Subaru, they're aiming for reliability dominance in rugged regions where all-wheel drive is essential and maintenance resources are limited. These three trucks aren't just products, they're strategic weapons designed to infiltrate global markets that mainstream automakers have neglected for decades. What's truly blowing people's minds is how these companies manage to keep costs so low without producing junk. The secret lies in ruthless engineering simplification. These trucks skip unnecessary electronics, ditch complex powertrains, and rely on tried and tested components that cost pennies to produce and last forever. No giant touchscreens, no luxury trim packages, no overcomplicated transmissions, just straightforward mechanical reliability, and buyers are responding with pure excitement because for the first time in years, it feels like automakers actually listen to what customers want. Not flashy gimmicks, not bloated prices, just honest, functional trucks that won't financially ruin you. And as pre-order interest surges, competitors are scrambling behind closed doors, trying to figure out how to counterattack. But the problem is, they don't have the manufacturing flexibility to build something this cheap even if they wanted to. Years of pushing luxury options, giant profit margins, and complicated production systems has trapped them. And now the companies that stayed lean and efficient are detonating the entire pricing structure. And the shockwaves are so intense that US dealers are already quietly complaining because once these trucks enter North America, and make no mistake, eventually they will, it will expose just how inflated truck prices have become. American buyers are already sick of paying full-size prices for mid-size capability, sick of $900 monthly payments, sick of trucks that are more software than steel. And now with the global buzz around these ultra-affordable pickups, US consumers are starting to ask the uncomfortable question: if GM, Toyota, and Subaru can build an $8,000 truck overseas, why can't they do it here? That's the pressure automakers fear the most, because once that narrative takes hold, there's no going back. And as we dig deeper into how this pricing revolution started, we uncover something even more. As we uncover the roots of this pricing revolution, it becomes clear that this wasn't an accident. It was a long brewing retaliation against the runaway inflation of the automotive world. For years, brands kept stretching prices higher and higher, stuffing trucks with luxury features and software subscriptions nobody asked for. But while they were chasing those giant margins, GM, Toyota, and Subaru quietly studied the parts of the world where trucks are tools, not fashion statements. They realized something the big players ignored: demand for simple, durable, mechanically honest trucks never went away. It was suppressed by corporate priorities, not consumer preferences. So while other companies were busy turning pickups into lifestyle toys, these three were preparing a counterpunch that would reset global expectations overnight. And the moment these trucks were revealed, something unexpected happened. Not only did their target markets explode with excitement, but wealthy countries started paying attention too. Social media is filled with comments from people in the US, Canada, Europe, and Australia saying the same same thing. Why don't we get trucks like this? The images of the IMV-0 with its boxy retro-futuristic look went viral immediately. The Montana's modern compact proportions made people nostalgic for the days of small trucks that actually fit in parking spaces. And the Subaru pickup sparked a wave of enthusiasm from adventure communities who have been begging for a rugged, simple, affordable utility vehicle for decades. Suddenly, the global audience isn't just interested, they're begging their governments and local dealers to bring these trucks home. And that political pressure is already being felt because regulators are now being forced to answer why a simple, safe, durable truck can sell for $8,000 overseas, but magically must cost $35,000 domestically. Behind closed doors, industry analysts are warning that this could trigger a regulatory battle unlike anything the truck world has seen. If consumers push hard enough, and if these cheap trucks become global sensations, regulators might face demands to ease compliance barriers that artificially inflate vehicle prices. And if that happens, the entire pricing structure of trucks could collapse. Automakers who've built their profits on oversized, over-optioned pickups will be backed into a corner, forced to slash prices or reinvent their product lines entirely. And the irony is brutal. The very companies that abandoned the cheap truck market are now praying it doesn't come back to haunt them. Meanwhile, supply chain experts are pointing to another key factor powering this revolution: localized manufacturing. Toyota, Subaru, and GM structured these trucks so they can be built in low-cost facilities across Asia, South America, and Africa, using simple tooling and easy-to-source parts. That means they can scale production fast, shift assembly to different countries depending on demand, and avoid expensive logistics that bigger trucks rely on. This decentralization is putting massive pressure on companies that still depend on high-cost North American and European factories. It's becoming clear that the old manufacturing model simply cannot compete with this new lean, modular, globally flexible system. And while automakers are scrambling to react, investors are watching something even more dangerous: early signs that these budget trucks could cannibalize sales of compact crossovers, small SUVs, and even sedans. Why buy a tiny hatchback or compact SUV when, for the same price, you can get a practical pickup that carries cargo, handles rough terrain, and costs pennies to maintain? This is exactly why industry forecasters are predicting a massive reshuffling of global vehicle segments if these trucks scale up. The cheap pickup might become the new default vehicle in dozens of countries, a do-it-all machine that replaces everything from family cars to delivery vans. And just as this shift accelerates, rumors begin circulating that more automakers are secretly developing their own ultra-budget trucks. Some dealers are already privately warning manufacturers that if they try to bring these trucks to developed markets, they will push back. They don't want vehicles that people can buy outright with cash. They don't want models that don't need expensive service packages. And they certainly don't want a truck that undercuts their $55,000 full-size inventory. This is why so many people are calling this moment a reckoning, because it exposes how deeply the industry depends on keeping trucks artificially expensive. Meanwhile, the excitement among buyers is reaching a fever pitch, and online communities are already forming lists of aftermarket mods, accessories, lift kits, bed racks, and off-road upgrades for trucks that haven't even hit showrooms yet. In fact, the IMV-0 has become a cult icon overnight, with fans calling it the Toyota Land Cruiser for normal people, and the return of the no-nonsense work truck. The Montana is being praised for bringing back the spirit of small compact pickups like the old S10 and Courier, and Subaru's pickup is quickly developing a fan base of outdoorsy drivers who have been begging for a rugged, minimalistic adventure truck for nearly 30 years. These communities are fueling an even bigger wave of demand, pressuring their local markets, politicians, and even importers to find ways to bring these trucks in, officially or unofficially. But as the hype keeps growing, insiders are beginning to reveal something even more explosive: plans for EV versions of these ultra-cheap trucks. That's right, manufacturers are already sketching electric variants designed to be simple, light, modular, and even cheaper to maintain than their gas counterparts. Early reports suggest low-range urban EV work trucks aimed at delivery fleets, farmers, small businesses, and developing cities where fuel prices are volatile. If these EV versions come to life, they could completely bulldoze the bottom of the electric vehicle market and become the first EVs most people in emerging economies economies ever own, and this development is putting even more pressure on legacy EV makers who have failed to bring down battery costs or simplify their platforms. Rumors are exploding across the industry that even more automakers are now secretly scrambling to develop their own ultra-budget pickups, desperate not to be left behind in what analysts are already calling the $8,000 truck gold rush. Leaked supply chain documents, insider whispers, and unusual prototype sightings all point to a wave of manufacturers preparing emergency responses. Brands that once swore they'd never touch the low-cost utility segment are suddenly hosting midnight engineering meetings, studying the IMV Zero, reverse engineering the Montana's Simplicity, and quietly evaluating whether they can slash costs enough to compete. Some companies are even approaching Chinese suppliers to build entire truck platforms offshore just to keep up, because everyone sees the writing on the wall. Whoever dominates the ultra-cheap truck market will control the next decade of global automotive sales. And the fear inside boardrooms is palpable because GM, Subaru, and Toyota have something the rest don't: a massive head start. They already developed the platforms, secured the supply chains, and built the manufacturing pipelines. Meanwhile, their competitors are stuck with expensive platforms full of tech, sensors, and components that simply cannot be stripped down cheaply. That's why these rivals look absolutely trapped. If they rush out a cheap truck, it won't be cheap enough. If they do nothing, they'll lose entire markets in Asia, Africa, and South America within just a few years. And for companies like Ford and Nissan that rely heavily on truck profits to survive, this is a nightmare scenario. One executive even admitted off the record that if Toyota releases the IMV Zero globally, half the industry's business model collapses instantly. But what's even more shocking is that these low-cost trucks aren't just threatening other automakers, they're threatening entire dealership structures. Dealerships have built their business around financing, upselling, and charging thousands in fees on high-priced vehicles. But an $8,000 truck sold with minimal options and low margins destroys that revenue model completely. Suddenly, the idea of an $8,000 gasoline truck evolving into a $12,000 electric version doesn't look impossible. It looks inevitable, and just as the world starts wrapping its head around that possibility, new leaks suggest even more radical expansions of this ultra-budget philosophy. New leaks suggest that this ultra-budget philosophy is about to spread far beyond pickup trucks, with insiders hinting that several automakers are preparing entire families of low-cost vehicles built on the same simplified architecture. We're talking mini SUVs, compact vans, off-road utility rigs, and even basic commuter cars, all derived from the same bones as the Montana, the Subaru pickup, and Toyota's IMV Zero. And this is where the story gets absolutely wild, because if this happens, it won't just disrupt one segment, it could transform the entire global car market from the bottom up. Think about it. Instead of spending billions on complicated EV platforms and high-tech luxury vehicles, companies could churn out millions of durable, cheap, highly repairable vehicles that are nearly impossible for competitors to beat on price. This is exactly how Toyota originally conquered global markets in the 1960s and 70s, and it looks like history is about to repeat itself with a modern twist. At the same time, financial analysts are now openly predicting that the companies embracing the $8,000 truck wave could see explosive growth in emerging markets. Countries in Southeast Asia, South America, and Africa are currently experiencing a massive boom in small businesses, infrastructure projects, and rural development, all of which require affordable work vehicles. Until now, those regions were stuck with outdated models, overpriced imports, or unreliable micro trucks that break easily. But the GM Montana, Subaru's rugged pickup, and Toyota's IMV Zero hit the perfect balance between affordability and durability. They are modern enough to inspire confidence, simple enough to repair anywhere, and cheap enough to buy in fleets of dozens or hundreds. This is why governments are already reaching out, exploring partnerships, and planning procurement deals before the trucks have even hit mass production. Meanwhile, the West is undergoing an unexpected cultural shift as well. Younger buyers, especially Gen Z and first-time car owners, are completely rejecting the idea of taking on huge auto loans for feature-packed vehicles they don't need. They don't care about heated massaging seats or giant touchscreens. They want something simple, functional, and affordable. And these ultra-budget trucks represent exactly that mindset. Online polls show young people calling them the first trucks we could actually buy without going broke, and a return to insanity after a decade of insane car prices. That shift in attitude is terrifying for established automakers who built their business around premiumization. If young buyers start demanding cheap trucks, companies either have to respond or lose an entire generation of customers. But the biggest shockwave is the geopolitical impact. Think tanks are now warning that whoever controls the ultra-budget vehicle market will gain enormous influence over developing economies. Cheap trucks are the backbone of trade, agriculture, construction, and logistics. They shape entire industries. And if Toyota, GM, and Subaru lock down these segments with $8,000 trucks, they could dominate supply chains, fuel markets, and industrial growth across multiple continents. Rival countries and automakers are already watching nervously, worried that if they don't develop competing platforms fast, they'll be locked out for decades. And just when it seemed like the disruption couldn't get any greater, new reports reveal that suppliers, the companies that build the parts behind the scenes, are beginning to shift their priorities towards supporting this lean, low-cost manufacturing philosophy. Some suppliers are even abandoning complex components to focus on simple, scalable parts that can be used across multiple cheap truck platforms. That means the entire supply chain is slowly reorienting itself toward affordability and robustness rather than complexity and luxury. Once suppliers shift, it becomes almost impossible for the industry to go back to the old model. Trucks will either get cheaper and simpler, or they will fail.